So, with that said, there is one final thing I wanted to talk about today before we go any further, and that's about Dan Livingston. Now, we've talked a little bit about the national impact, looking at Colin Kaepernick. We were talking a little bit about the Betsy Ross shoes that Nike got rid of because they apparently don't believe that the American flag is patriotic enough and somehow it's racist, which makes no sense whatsoever. Just because there was slavery in 1792 doesn't mean that the flag was racist or that America was racist. That doesn't compare. I mean, that doesn't mean that America is racist today because there is slavery in Africa at this moment. It doesn't make African nations necessarily racist, does it? I don't think so. But that's, a very unique viewpoint that the far left, that political progressive leaders of tomorrow, that Citizen Action, the Indivisible New York, that's the fringe left are looking for a way to get the emotions going. And one of their representatives is a Councilman Dan Livingston. We've spoken about him before. We've been following him for quite some time. Matter of fact, it was back in January 10th of 2019, the beginning of this year, when we released the article, Councilman Livingston's Day 1 Ethics Violations. Mr. Livingston is a local city councilman for the city of Binghamton, and he's been involved in nothing but scandals, ethical violations over and over and over again since the very moment he got sworn in. Besides the fact that Mr. Livingston does not actually swear in, he doesn't pledge the allegiance, he doesn't speak the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. All he does is that he just stands there. Now, that's a personal preference. Some people do that, some people don't. That's fine. But when you take that in combination with the fact that he's also been committing ethical violations over and over and over again, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And when I say he's committing ethical violations, we've seen him violate people's privacy with videos. He has no controls over him. He believes he can act in any manner, violating laws. He recently violated the Homeland Security regulations on public safety by having video disseminated to the public of critical services, water and sewage information live streamed that he put out on Facebook that endangers the very people, not just the city of Binghamton, but everyone going down into Pennsylvania. Throughout several hundreds of thousands of people who are affected potentially by someone, terrorists or someone with nefarious intentions, could be affected by his actions. So Mr. Livingston has a sordid history, to say the least. And as I said, we started our coverage on him, following him from actually before January, when he had violated ethics and usurped the power of city council before he even got sworn in. But then we saw him continue. And we brought this up at the city council, and we've also brought it up in person. But no, the thing that's most recent is that Mr. Livingston has been complicit in spreading misinformation amongst the public. He's been going out there and spreading information he's spreading third-hand information. Individuals are talking to him about a sewage plant. Now, if you're not familiar with the Southern Tier region in Binghamton, there's a sewage plant that's being redesigned, possibly privatized, and Mr. Livingston has been promoting the opinion of the union predominantly, and that of the Citizen Action and progressive leaders of tomorrow. He's been putting out their talking points as if they are actual truths. His excuse is, well, he's just reposting information and that he's had conversations with staff at the facility, and this means that it's all credible. Except he has actually never spoken to anyone actually responsible for any of the stewardship and control at the sewage plant. And therefore he is putting out other people's opinion about what's going on as if it is actual fact, which has caused great confusion for City Council, for the city of Binghamton, for that construction program and any future efforts in the city. And that has delayed action that could cost the city money because of his delays. And this is not conjecture. This is not me just saying, well, this is what I think. This actually came out on July 1st, City Council meeting, from actually a video done by Dan Livingston himself, where he had the entire City Council collected, and we saw that the actual members of the City Council, the individuals involved in the sewage plant, actually rebuked him for putting out misinformation, for lying to the public, for promoting untruth and causing problems for everyone. And at this moment in our video, which is titled July 1st, 2019, City Council Work Session, and I'll show you that in just 1 second so you can see it. Now, you can go on YouTube, you can see this. I've teed up the moment at 25 minutes into the meeting where the mayor of Binghamton, Mr. Rich David, is rebuking Mr. Livingston. I'll let you hear what he has to say.
This is a major project that's going on here. It is, a $250 million project. Not to mention that we haven't heard a peep of most of any of these things until after the concept of discussing a public-private partnership emerged. So, from my standpoint moving forward, there is a significant amount of misinformation that's coming out there. It's originating, I would say most of it, we're not going to speak in absolutes, a lot of it is being channeled through Councilman Livingston. And moving forward, I just think we need to have a plan on how we're going to respond to this. Either you're going to become more responsible with your statements, or we are going to just have to spend time doing this every couple weeks. And so how are you going to handle the misinformation you've put out there already? Are you going to put this response on all of your social media pages?
I don't think it's fair to characterize it as misinformation. Misinformation is coming from the operators of our plant, the paid professionals who have been operating this facility for, some of them for decades. And so to say that I haven't been talking to anybody is also a mischaracterization. I've been speaking with our staff, and I believe that
who are not involved in the construction project of the plant. I mean, do you think that that's the best way to proceed? And that you're entitled to your own opinion, but I mean, what is your response to their response? I mean, they are professional engineers that the city of Binghamton has hired to manage this project, and they're basically saying everything you're saying is not true, and they're providing photos and documentation. A picture is worth 1,000 words. It's clear that the photos you posted or shared and commented on are grossly inaccurate and don't paint the entire story.
All right, folks. So I just want to be clear. This is what we're getting. So when Dan Livingston was elected, he said he wanted to be transparent, that he wanted to speak for the people. And then he went out and he usurped the power of city of Binghamton and the power of the city council of Binghamton by putting out Facebook pages and social media pages as if he had authorization so that he could make statements that were not authorized. So basically, it's an act of fraud, and it is an ethical violation. He did that in November. Then we see in January, he decided on his own to tape secret recordings, videos of members of city council without notifying them that he was recording them. And yes, you can record meetings, but you need to let people know they're being recorded, and that there should be some oversight by any governmental group or anyone to be able to say, okay, you have legally followed the law, you've followed the letter of the law on what can be put public and not including information that isn't legal, which therefore could put the city of Binghamton under lawsuit for that, as well as being personally liable to Dan Livingston. And now that brings us, then he goes out and violates Homeland Security regulations and endangers the public. And now here he is. We're seeing, and the two people speaking in that were Dan Livingston and Mayor David. Mayor David starting it, and he's sitting at the table in the suit. But what we see very clearly is Mr. Livingston has no concern about the fact that he has put out misinformation. He's been factually documented, proven wrong. That the information he is telling the public, the information he is trying to influence the public with, is factually wrong. It's not even a question. It is factually wrong. It is in this interview we find out that he has never spoken to anyone with actual first-hand knowledge or is in charge of the sewage plant that he is speaking about and that he is putting out misinformation about. I don't understand this. How long do the people have to suffer with an individual who abuses the law, who violates the law, who endangers the public, and now is continuing to misinform the public willfully and has no intention of ever telling it? You want to talk about transparency? Mr. Livingston, in being directly asked by the mayor of Binghamton, Richard David, being asked, how are you going to inform the public about the misinformation you have provided, about posts that you have had to remove because you have legally you've created violations of law and had to be removed, and Mr. Transparency, Dan Livingston, doesn't tell the public a word. He just removes posts, he just changes his answers, but he doesn't tell the public why. He doesn't inform them that he was factually wrong. He doesn't tell people that he's spreading misinformation, that this is third-hand information from individuals who don't know what they're talking about, and that he is not bothered to do his due diligence to find out from the people actually involved, the engineers, the planning board, members of the city council and the board, that he has not bothered to ask any of them a single question. You don't have to believe me. It's on video. It's the video done by Mr. Livingston himself. It's his video, unedited, that says it all right there. You can start at minute 25 and go to minute 26. I believe that's the most important parts, but you can watch the whole thing. And it's very clear. This is not how you serve the public. I don't care if you're with progressive leaders of tomorrow. I don't care if Citizen Action supports you. I don't care that you're part of a fringe movement of the Democratic Party and that you don't respect the American flag enough to actually salute, that you don't respect the people enough or the nation enough to actually give the Pledge of Allegiance. Fine. But you cannot go out there and actively misinform the public without any consequence. We have a pattern of ethical violations. We have a pattern of violations of law that can endanger the public. And now we have a willful attempt to misinform the public. How can this person still be in office? This is beyond negligence. This is not because he is stupid. It's not because he doesn't know what he's doing, that he's a new member of the city council. This is an active and purposive attempt to mislead the public, to violate ethics, to, in many cases, violate the law. I believe he should be removed. And we see this in county after county, city after city throughout America as we see Democratic Socialists rising up. We're seeing the fringe of the parties moving into power, where individuals are misusing social media. They are misrepresenting their positions. They have no idea what the laws are, and they are actively endangering people's lives because they just do something because they want to, regardless of the consequences that others have to suffer for it. That is not what America is about. You know what, Mr. Livingston, I say to you, on the 4th of July, tomorrow, why don't you take a moment, open up a history book, and look at the great things that people have done in this nation and the fact that they follow the law and they live in the social contract that we all have together to benefit each other rather than to benefit a single individual or a political ideology that not everyone agrees with. Perhaps by following the rules, we can do more to benefit the public than to go out there on your own, doing your own thing for your own personal gain. That's my personal view. Mr. Livingston, you may not be able to support, you may not love America. You don't pledge allegiance. You won't even say the words. Put your hand over your heart. That's your personal perspective. And that means that I hope on the 4th of July, you're not watching the fireworks. I hope you're sitting down in your room and you're studying the actual Constitution to understand what's going on. But since you may not be doing that, I also want you to know that no one is forgetting the fact that you have a pattern of violations and that these things have consequences. And New York State, federal government should all be involved in this because you have broken the law, you have violated ethics, and there is a consequence that will come down the line. That's my thought. You may think I'm wrong, folks. Let me know, please. I look forward to hearing your comments. I thank you for joining us here at No Soundbites Allowed in our extended conversation today. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with candidate George Phillips, who's running for the New York 22nd District. I hope you come back on July 9th when we'll be speaking with Steve Cornwell at 1 p.m. for his conversation about the New York 22nd race and his position in the DA as the District Attorney of Broome County. And I also hope you look forward to us speaking with Donald Lepardo, Assemblywoman for New York 123rd District. I hope you have a great 4th of July, and I'll talk to you again all very, very soon. Thank you.